We're live. Hey, this is Mike Giannotti from Healthcare and Life Sciences. And today I'm in Studio Central here in the Microsoft Technology Center. And I am joined, I'm joining them, I guess, because I'm the big talking head. I feel like a cartoon or something. I'm Mr. Big Head. And we're talking with
Michael Mukalian. Good afternoon, folks. I'm here at the Philadelphia MTC. I'm the Modern Workplace Technology Architect.
And I'm similar to him. My name's Bruce Weaver. I'm a technical solutions professional. I'm a lot like Mike, just not
smarter.
Just not as effective.
Smarter. So, guys, I work with healthcare and life sciences, and it's a regulated industry. And right now, Teams is hot. I mean, it's hotter than my coffee spilling on me. But one of the things that I see with folks oftentimes is they ask, they're like, look, when you got to go, they want to turn on guest access because they're working with researchers and partners and vendors, just like we are, and they want to invite people in, but they don't want the one big, like down in my basement, the master power switch on or off. They want to be a little more selective about what they're doing. And I understand you two, because you're smarter than me, have taken a look at this and like kind of made a concept or a thing, or what have you done?
A conceptual thing.
We did make a thing.
Conceptual thing.
We made a thing. Yeah. So
were you in a lab? Was there? It is alive.
It's the basement of the science
Yes.
building. So we did make a thing, and thank you for letting us share it with your audience here today. One of the things that was interesting, we were in a conversation with a customer of ours, and the CISO challenged us and said, "Hey, my business wants this external access feature, but my guys tell me that there's only one switch, that master switch from the basement, and basically as long as there's only one switch, I'm not in favor of turning it on. I'd like a little bit more granular control over whether I do or don't do this. So we said, well, let us take a look to see what we can come up with. And Mike, why don't you switch over here?
The deck.
Yeah, pull up the Mike's screen here, and I'll
Mike's screen.
Mike's screen.
Not your screen.
You want to show Bruce's
No, not
screen?
my screen.
Bruce's screen is off limits right now.
That's our inside joke.
My
All right,
screen is
so we're
fine, just to be clear. My
Look at
screen
that,
is fine.
it's blank. Look at that. You can at least pull up a PowerPoint or something. All right, so we're gonna switch on over.
So, yeah, keep in mind, if you've been in the Teams Administration Center and you've looked into this particular aspect of using Teams, working with guests outside your company, you'll probably have seen this. This is that master switch, if you will, which the CISO challenged us on. And again, the default for this is on in your tenant, so you've likely turned it off as a security measure today. We'd like you to be able to turn it back on to start doing this work and get some of those scenarios. But it's on by default. Typically, Mr. CISO would say, or Miss CISO would say, no,
thank you.
I'm not going to have that in my environment because it's too broad of an access control. I need more sculpting. I need more surgical precision, if you will, if I'm going to turn this thing on. So we dug into the platform, and we found that there are some controls that are not in the administration UX, not inside the administration UI. And we found this particular control here, you'll see at the bottom in this box, that talks about allowing or blocking guest access on an Office 365 group, which for most of you who have been paying attention over the last few years, Teams is built on that Office 365 group substructure.
Yep.
And because the control sits underneath Teams, we can actually leverage it for benefit in this scenario.
So in that case, we're leveraging the group as it's providing permissions and access. You're going to leverage that to provide that selective access to Teams.
Like everyone knows, when we create a team, I mean, a group is created under the scenes, right?
Yeah.
To hold all that security stuff.
Yep.
What we found based upon all the earlier documentation you saw was there's other settings and bits that we can kind of turn on and off. Consider them smaller circuit breakers as opposed to the large master switch in my basement. How'd you like that?
Yeah,
I like
good,
that.
Right?
I like that.
So consider this the circuit breaker for external
here.
teams, right? So here's what we kind of came up with.
Yeah, so in our customer that we worked on this with, they had and this is on, some customers do this, some customers don't. You may find yourself in a similar situation. They chose not to support the out-of-the-box viral creation of teams. Much like SharePoint, they require when someone wants a SharePoint site or a team that they go and request help from the help desk to basically review it, authorize it, and then actually press it into existence. So they chose to make Teams like SharePoint for them, and that process you see on the left is exactly how they did that, right? They basically had a SharePoint list. People would submit entries into the list. Help desk would basically process the list, and after authorizing the request, they would then hand carve a Microsoft team to make that happen. So actually, this solution does two things. Number one, it helps address that security context for enabling selective teams guest access. Number two, it also lightens the load on those IT help desk people.
They got day jobs.
Yeah, they don't have to hand.
No.
Yeah, they don't
They
have
got
to.
work
Imagine
to
that,
do.
right? They got work to do.
Yeah, they don't have to hand carve teams anymore. They don't have
Right.
to do that by hand because we can automate that through the approval process.
Nice.
So that's what we ended up coming up with, and you see on the right-hand
And
side
so wait
here.
a minute. So well, I'll keep going.
Okay. No. Bring
I
it,
was
bring
going to
it.
ask
What you
because I
got?
see it up there. I see Power Apps.
Yep.
Is this like the Power Platform?
Ooh.
The Power Hour.
It is. the
It,
Power
it, it is.
Platform.
It is 2 of the 3 bits of the Power Platform. Yes, we're using Power
So
Apps
wait a
and
minute.
Flow.
So you didn't open up Visual Studio and write like 1 million hours of code?
Nope.
No, I don't have those chops.
It was a weekend actually.
It was a weekend.
It was a weekend actually.
Wait, whoa. Okay, that's another topic.
That's right.
But we'll let that go. Go
That's
ahead.
on Bruce's screen.
Yeah, so we decided to look at what we could do without a lot of talent because I didn't have a lot to offer. This guy
Not
does,
because we
but-
didn't.
But what can we get done with some of these more, end user focused toolings, if you will? So you'll see Power Apps mentioned. We decided to model up the solution with Power Apps to allow for end users to basically submit and track the request from a phone rather than having to go and do it from a PC. And then, of course, the Power App will actually deposit that request into a SharePoint list, and then we start processing that list and all these new items that come through it with Flow plus the Microsoft Graph, and we ultimately produce a Microsoft team. So those are the tools
Nice.
that we've done, and then we pulled up an example here, a working demo, so you guys can take a look
hold on
at
one
this.
sec. So
Good.
as we're getting ready to get into this, then really, if people are watching, which I'm assuming we have a vast audience right now, but seriously though, as people are watching this, they're seeing not only your solution, which conceptually is something that they can look at themselves. We're going to leave licensing out of the discussion right now because any of you guys sales?
I am not a licensing expert, and I have not stayed at a Holiday Inn Express, so I can't say a thing about licensing.
That's right. So,
I do work closely with salespeople, but I am not one of them.
yeah, so we're the licensing. That's something you got to talk to your folks about in sales. But this also is a great opportunity for them to take a look at what you've done because you mentioned a couple of things. You're leveraging Graph.
Yep.
Bam. People are, what do I do with the Graph other than delve? Well, there's a lot you can do with the Graph.
Absolutely.
Right? You're leveraging the Power Platform. It makes me want to talk in a deep voice. Hi, it's the Power Platform.
Channel your Barry White. Go
So,
ahead.
that's right. Oh, now I'm hearing in my head. I blame you. But you're leveraging the Power Platform to accomplish something that in the past might have taken coding and scripting and all kinds of stuff. So you're automating all this process, and this is stuff as people are watching, they should be able to get some ideas about other things that they can extend this and
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
take
to your
and run.
point, I mean, the Graph's a whole big bucket of stuff, right?
Yeah.
In this instance, we were able to leverage the information we found as it relates to guest access and apply it to a graph control and then wrap it inside Power Apps and Flow
Right.
and SharePoint.
And-
But if there's a call available for whatever you need to do,
Yep.
And this isn't my proudest statement, but to be honest with you, right? Long before the Graph, there was other ways to manipulate these types of things, and it was called PowerShell, and those
Right.
things still exist, right? And I can get by with PowerShell, but I'm not an expert at it.
You're-
I'm not
yeah.
great at it.
well,
Like,
and that's a good point because the slide that you saw previously that called that out at the bottom, that actually references a PowerShell document on our website. We came up with this graph after the fact.
yeah, for me, I was like, look, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to spend my weekends on it, I'm not going to get great at PowerShell. It's just not
Sure.
something I'm going to do. But I wanted to see how much I could get done with the platform in a different way, because I'm not going to spend my time in PowerShell, but I will spend it in Flow and start looking at how to use the Graph. So it was easier for me to leverage the Graph than it is for me to leverage PowerShell.
So why don't we
Love
cycle
it.
back over to demo
Lovely.
while we keep talking and
All
we'll
right,
kind of
here
walk
we
through
go.
some things here.
And we are back.
So I already pre-filled some of this as it is. So I'm walking through the submission request that an
Okay.
individual wants to add to say, hey, I want to spin up a team, right? And we're HLS today, so I'm spinning up Team HLS External. In this case, I'm putting in a request for a team that allows for guests.
Okay.
And that's a Power App you've got up and running,
So
right?
the screen that you're seeing off to the right is a Power App that overrides the standard data entry screens for SharePoint.
Yep.
This is going to add an item to the SharePoint list that you see behind the scenes.
Also could easily be on your phone.
Easily be on your phone. You can create a different Power App if you want to do it on your
Nice.
phone. The whole 9 yards, right? So I'm going to hit save for this one, and that says allow guests. And then what I'm going to do next is I'll put in a second one to show off the not only the filling it out again, but at least talk about it
You
from an
just want to
internal
show your
perspective.
typing skills.
That too, because I really am very good at typing internal. So we'll leave say no guests. And then in this case I can pick a template, we'll just pick standard.
So so you've got so again, using stuff that is documented out there on templatizing, you've now tied this to your flow.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Dude.
So I could
Dude.
theoretically, well that's another,
That's
another,
a whole other thing
that's
I
another
get asked
topic,
about.
right? I could technically pick any one of the already pre-made templates we
I'm
have.
quitting my job. I'm going to have you just show people because this is rocking.
You were in this job before. This was your spot. So yeah, while it's provisioning, to your point, a little sidebar, we could leverage any one of the pre-made templates that we have
Nice.
related to teams. In this case, I'm just kicking out standard, which is just your team with the general channel
Right.
channel.
But if a company had a custom template that they created using the documentation,
Well, wanted to leverage one of these.
they could call that.
Yeah, we
Sure.
can press it into service automatically.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sweet.
So while this is happening, if we look at the flow behind the scenes, and let's do a real quick refresh just to be sure, to see where it is in flight. It's still going. Cool. The flow behind the scenes is really kind of where, the important stuff happens.
It's the magic.
It's the magic. It's the secret sauce, as you call it, right? So this Teams request is going to do a bunch of different things. You'll see a lot of different colored boxes, and we'll kind of blow through these a little bit quick here.
Yeah.
But basically, at the very top, we're just saying when a item comes in from SharePoint, right? We're going to send an email out to the individual that submitted it, say, you know what, you submitted a site request. I go through a couple variable things, and then really where it starts happening is this box down at the bottom. I'm going to send out the approval request to the relevant individual to say yes or no for this team.
Mm-hmm.
If I put in an individual that had a manager, go to their manager, that kind of thing, right?
Right.
So once that person approves it, that's when we start moving forward. So after they approve it, we call the graph. So not to get too technical, I need to go grab a token, which basically means I can make all these other calls against this token.
Can you use that on the subway?
You cannot because they use cards now. No, you cannot. And then from there, I can use it for all my other calls if you so configured it.
Yep.
And this is the big one, or one of the big ones right here. I'm creating a team through a single call with the
Nice.
relevant information.
Right, and the token is used, many people know this, but just the token is used basically, we're going to make these programmatic calls to the graph. Not just anyone can make calls to the graph, you got to authenticate, right? You've got to be able to be authorized and authenticate your application to the graph before you can start asking it to do things for you. So the token gives us that capability.
So you'll see that token there as part of the bearer as it relates to the authorization header. I do a couple other little things. I throw in a little bit of weight just to make sure stuff gets provisioned. But my determine allowed guests is the other important piece here. And I'll open up both of the green boxes again. Again, these are both REST calls out the door to the graph. On the left-hand side, based upon what I've selected whether I allow guests or not, I'm going to set the guest access to false, if you see on the bottom left. Or if they're allowed to be in, I set it to true on the right. And those two calls pretty much it, one or the other.
So now I have various teams. We have different teams that are being provisioned. Some you're allowing to have that guest, some you're not. And
That's
you're
right.
not doing it at the teams level. Again, this is happening because of groups.
Right, but because you apply it to the group, the team that is associated with it
affects it,
gets
right.
it. It sure does.
That is awesome.
But now, also related to that point, maybe I should have scrolled up a little bit more, but now that I'm able to take in the request and kind of look at what I want to do and what I don't want to do, the emails that go out from an approval perspective, I can change. I can be more tailored. I can say, if it's just an internal request where it's just internal folks, it's my standard, terms and conditions, don't worry about it, know what you're doing.
Right.
If I've requested a site that says external access, please, put in extra verbiage like, be mindful of the communications that you're having with external people, that kind of stuff. Make sure your information is secure.
Absolutely.
But now I can tailor those responses as they go out the door without having to recarve each email and send it out myself.
So I got a quick question, because that brings up something I hadn't thought about before we decided to record.
Uh-oh.
So if it's just the parameters that you're setting on the team, right?
Yep.
So internally at Microsoft, one of the things that we do is when you go to provision, right? It says, is it confidential, highly, is it not, not sensitive or whatever. So people could set those attributes, which could then trigger things from a security and compliance context, right?
Yep.
It's,
No, they're
it's
not.
absolutely
Yeah.
true. As a matter of fact, just a side note, we did do that at Microsoft, and the way we discovered it was long after the solution was baked up, saw a community post on Yammer for someone that was previously working externally with a company through
Right.
Teams, and then all of a sudden one day it stopped working, and they were trying to understand what had changed, and it turns out that they were asked to put a classification on the team.
Gotcha.
And when they selected the classification, we flipped the bit and we applied this particular setting. And
Yep.
so ultimately they called help desk. Help desk said, "Oh, okay, we can flip the setting back," and they were back in business. So
Right, but that's something then people could build in as they're building out their kind of a workflow.
And in addition to that, you're able,
Yeah.
because I have those data points now, all that business logic and all those processes that are usually manual processes,
Mhm.
now I could theoretically make them more automated, right? To the point where
That
at the
is
end of the
awesome.
day, Joe User back in IT just needs to hit the approve button and go do this regular part of his day job.
That
Right.
is sweet. All right, we're flipping back here.
Flipping back, so you'll see a couple emails. These are the the validations of the request I put in, and you'll see for those that are familiar with approval emails, this is the format that it comes back into that individual's inbox,
Yep.
right? So I could approve from here, but in this case, I'll just approve from my phone because I can do all sorts of things
Wait a
on my
minute.
phone. Well, you can't.
Because you can do it where? You just
From
hold
my
it up.
phone.
On your phone.
On my phone.
Because we are mobile.
So I'll approve both teams, and as both go through, we'll see once we pop over on the team side, the existence of the internal and external HLS teams that we've created.
So we're gonna have the teams automatically created for us through process.
Yes.
So you're entering it right now on your phone.
Basically
Okay.
approving it. Yep.
Yep.
Oh,
Once I approve it, if
Go
we go
on
back
back
to my
here.
flow here, I'll show you the path. So both of these are running now. We both hit approval pieces. All the beginning parts of the flow are done, right?
Gotcha.
All the green check marks are good. I'm going to determine if it's approved or not, and it was. I go down the left side here. I got my token, so basically my user ID password bit to make my calls. Parsed it out of the call. I called my team to create it, green. I set my location, blah, blah, blah. I come down to this small delay that I'm having here to make sure that the bits behind the scenes are provisioned. And then once this piece is done, it's going to go through the rest and like add owners, add members,
Mhm.
as well as determine if guest access is required or not for this specific request and this request only. And after you set that, you're golden to use the team from that point on. So once this goes green, loop through members, determine if I allow guests. I open that one up. In this case, guest access is going to be false because we said false, and that's what that call is. If I go back to one of the other calls and look at the path for that one, it's still running. Scroll back down again to the bottom, determine if they're approved. They're going through all the other calls. It went through the wait, determine if they allow guests. Notice how it went up to the right hand side. We're now allowing guests for this team. So if I pop over to my teams, you'll see down in the bottom left, I have teams HLS internal and external. These were just created.
Automatically.
So
Nice.
let's do the external side first.
with
so
the proper surgical control.
right. So if I'm going to add another person, and I'll say, Mike, give me your non-Microsoft. Well, I'll give you Microsoft email. So what is it? Mjanati?
MGAN.
Mgan
MGANN.
at Microsoft.com.
Yes. Before we use names.
I'm in the external team.
So you're in the external
Yep.
team, and you're able to invite him. And this is what people's normal experience is, right? Just
Mhm.
enter an email address for someone outside the company.
Yeah.
Plus add guest, and you're off to the races, right?
Right? Close. He's added.
Because he's been authorized.
Yep.
Yep.
But if I come here now and do the same thing,
We're in the team where this is disabled.
where it's disabled, Jan at Microsoft.com, didn't find any matches.
Whoa.
And that's
Nice.
That's the thing you're looking for.
And I've even my IDs have been added to Azure AD,
still can't.
but it still can't find
Still
it.
can't.
because the clamp is down
That's-
on the team. The clamp is
yeah.
on the group, right?
So
Wait a
so
minute.
what do we
I
do
gotta
here?
get the visual on that. Where's the clamp?
The clamp is
But-
down on. It's underneath the team,
Yeah.
right on the group.
But now imagine, I mean, I
It's
don't
like
want
a
to call it a blocker, right? Now it's just
Yeah.
a matter of approving this process, right? So whether it's the individual's manager or it goes to
Mhm.
somebody in the security group or it goes to somebody in IT, whatever, it just turns into a whole, what's he asking for? We allow that, approve, and then that's it.
And that's it.
And that's it.
And you did it from your phone, so again, it could be they're walking.
Phone, desktop,
this
wherever
could
they
be
are.
manufacturing, and the IT guy happens to be on the shop floor.
Sure.
And he's, bam.
Absolutely, processes the approval, and the team gets pressed into service.
It's kind of like when my daughter just before this asked for money and I approved it.
It's just like that.
Can I get on that
for
list?
my phone? You gave. There we go.
Can I get on that list, Uncle Mike?
Awesome.
So one of the things we wanted to share, other than
Yeah.
just that solution, was so we took the solution back to the customer and they said, "Hey, this looks promising. This is
Sure.
the kind of control we needed."
Yep.
And then it opened up a different set of discussions with them. They basically came back and said, "Well, now that we can turn this on or off per team, assuming we turn it on,
Mhm.
how, what else are we going to do to protect the contents of that
Right.
team, right? I mean, and I'm
Yep.
guessing in your world
You
as
just
well.
gave Selective people the key to your house. What are you going to do?
Right. So the idea of like now that I've authorized guest access, how do I protect the people and the content that's being shared throughout that team? And so we introduced and shared with them as well mechanisms. There's other tooling that you can use from
Mhm.
Microsoft 365. For example, you can place a requirement that any guests who access your team have to multi-factor authenticate
Gotcha.
to strengthen their
Yep.
authentication. That's something that you can do. You can also
You can set up the proper DLP policies across the board that are just, document content centric, whether you're internal or not, right? Because you should be doing that anyway.
Right.
But now they're having people from the outside coming in. They still have to follow those rules because those rules are going to be there.
there was
Yeah,
another-
and once their ID's added, they become a part of that whole security and compliance
Exactly.
story, right, across the
Exactly.
board. And going back to the earlier discussion where we were talking about automating, like we do a thing, you manually as you're provisioning your team, you could automate that under this process, right? Have
Yeah.
Set policies, if it's going to have guest access, invoke DLP, rights management, whatever.
Yep, another one that was really popular for them was access reviews. So that, hey, you've granted authorization, but 6 months from now, should they still need authorization, right?
Right.
And how can I make sure that that happens by process rather than by exception? So recertification is what the customer called it. Recertifying that guests who
And
were once authorized still need access, and if not, get
Nice.
them out of there, right?
Right. Yeah, and setting that policy up with Azure AD and
Yep, but we
rock
couldn't
and
we
roll.
couldn't get to those
Without doing this
we
first.
Yeah.
For those people who might be struggling with this concept, we couldn't get to those other controls until we solved for this one first.
baseline.
Right, we had to
materials
get that
things. Yeah.
surgical per team control down
Yeah, and it
to
might
be able to think about the rest of the problem.
And it might have been like a combination thing. So it might have been like those, not show me that this can work before I have that further conversation,
Mhm.
right? Or like a sense of control, like no, you can't do what I want you to do, so we're not going to give you anything. So we were able to turn around and say, look, sure, there's the big master switch, but if you follow, these types of methodologies, these types of processes, using stuff that you have internally already, change the bits around, move the buckets around. Now you have a working process that allows you to request something, somebody to approve it, and still be done in a secure manner.
Awesome. So you guys did this kind of like as a concept, almost a proof of concept,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
To show them, hey, this is what's the art of the possible. Look, you have the tools. This is what's possible with that. Obviously, if customers are exploring and if they have, domain expertise, they want to talk to their sales teams about licensing and things they want to access, but they could either use the Power, and that's the beauty of the Power Platform, right? They can do that to start configuring their own type of process, or they could engage with services, right? A
Sure.
Microsoft partner or
Yeah.
somebody else, because you're not doing anything that's not already there.
Nope.
Absolutely. And one thing for our IT friends, if you're tuning
Yeah.
in, I originally thought of Flow in this context. I thought, Flow's the place where I'm going to go do approvals. And yes, we showed approvals as part of this flow. But what's interesting about it is it's ironic that it can be opened up as an automation platform for IT tasks,
That's
right?
awesome.
Flow plus Graph allows me to orchestrate, and I never would have guessed that unless I spent a weekend.
I have a vision now of you.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's just a very small sliver of what you can do with the graph, right?
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
The entire set of endpoints available for the graph are pretty much, far and wide, right?
And I think what's great with a solution like this, if folks are getting in, if they're getting their feet wet, it opens that up, right? Because now once they start getting comfortable with accessing it, it's what else can we do?
Yeah.
That's right.
Now, what are all the other IT things that I do as the day-to-day that aren't part of my job
Right.
that I can theoretically now automate?
Absolutely.
It truly becomes the Power Platform.
Right, there he is again. See, that was
Cool.
that was
There's a little
it.
vampire in your voice there.
Well, so anything else, or are we good?
I think we're
think we're
good.
good.
Ultimately,
Yeah.
if anyone's interested, tuning in, come talk to Microsoft.
Yeah.
Come talk to us.
I think that's the key, right?
Talk to your teams, talk to your
Yeah.
folks that you know, come on in.
Talk to your account team, you got Premier, you got other people that you're working with. Talk to us. We want to help.
Yep.
We have a platform that enabled you guys to ignore your families over a weekend. It's a whole other concept on work-life balance. But no, but it's stuff that people could actually start to look at and automate like this and other processes.
Yep, and you know, the three of us here, we've all been in the collab space for a lot of years, right?
Yeah.
And working externally with other companies has always been hard, right?
Yeah.
Teams is the easiest I've seen it in my career, and so we think there's a lot of pent-up demand for that scenario, and we hate to see, you know, one master switch hold you back from that, right?
Yeah.
So work with us a little bit. We can help you get over that hump and get you guys collaborating
Yeah.
with people outside the company
Yeah,
really easily.
based on all the stuff that we got, you know, feedback from the relevant customer and stuff. Come on in, we'll work out with your rules.
Yep.
Hang out, we'll feed you. We'll go across for like a day, 2 days.
So you're
whatever.
talking about, so that brings me up to a question. So you work at the,
Philadelphia MTC.
so if you work at the MTC and you will feed, you'll clothe them?
I will not clothe them. I
You'll
will not
feed
clothe
them.
Come on in. We'll listen to your rules. Tell us about your processes.
Yeah.
Help us understand your business, what you guys are trying to do, and we'll help you realize all that.
Yeah, and so you can help them like work through a proof of concept, right?
Exactly.
Something that maybe they want to go back.
That's how they started
replicate,
out. That's how
and
they
pilot.
And to the fact where they actually came in, because
Beautiful.
I mean, we'll do this real quick. You know, we showed them, you know, direct graph calls and how it changed the bits.
It was.
We
it
showed
was
them how it worked through
magnificent.
Flow. We showed them this actual solution, and then we actually did workshops with the customer to help them do it in their tenant.
Yep.
That's awesome.
So they ended the day with them doing the works themselves, proving it to themselves because they want to
Yep.
make sure that they can do it, and they're off and running.
Yep.
So that's the beauty of an MTC.
Yes,
It is actually.
People come on in. So I guess that's it.
That's it.
That's it.
So with that, this is Mike.
And Mike,
And Bruce.
We want to bid you all have a great day. Take care, and as always, everybody,
see you later.
ciao.